Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. I welcome you back to the Hindu analysis for today. Before we begin, a couple of important reminders. I hope by now all of you are a part of our Telegram channel. If not, please use the link given in the description of the video and join our Telegram channel to get all the latest current affairs updates about the UPSC examination. Also, this Wednesday at 8 p.m. we have the next episode of International Relations this week. Don't forget to join us for that as well. This will go live at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, that is tomorrow, right here on our YouTube channel. Let's begin with the first article that again takes us back to what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. Now, there's nothing new that this article now brings up to the light. We have already discussed this issue multiple times. The author here are saying that ironically, Vladimir Putin has been saying to the world that the UN Charter should be followed when he himself is not following any of the provisions of the UN Charter. As you know, just a few days back, Vladimir Putin had announced that Russia has annexed 4 regions from Ukraine: Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. He also said that now that these are a part of Russia, any attack in these areas or any attempt by Ukraine to take back these areas will be a violation of the UN Charter. This is so ironic because when you were taking these areas away from Ukraine, then you did not remember the UN Charter, and now all of a sudden you remember the UN Charter. Also, the UN General Assembly has time and time again asked Russia to stop its invasion, but because the UN General Assembly resolutions are not binding, Russia has not accepted any of them. On the other hand, Ukraine has tried to adopt other options as well. Ukraine, in fact, went to the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court. All these courts have asked Russia to immediately cease fire, but they have not done so till now. The war crimes still continue. In fact, if you would have seen the news recently, after the bridge that connects Crimea with Russia was blown up, after that, Russian forces actually bombed major cities in Ukraine, including their own capital city. Thus, the war crimes at the hands of the Russians are just increasing day after day, and this blowing up of the Crimea bridge has actually made the Russians even more angry on Ukraine. Now, the Russian government is saying that Article 51 of the UN Charter provides for self defense against an armed attack. So, Ukraine should not attack them. But the reality is that Ukraine has not attacked Russia even once. The entire war is happening in Ukraine's territory and not in the Russian territory. So, this provision of the UN Charter should be used by Ukraine and not Russia. We also have the famous Hague Convention of 1899, which was the first treaty that laid down the laws of war. Article 43 of this convention said that if the authority of the legitimate power over territory has been passed into the hands of the occupant, then all the steps should be taken to retake that territory, and there should be public order and safety in that territory. Russia is not even accepting that. There is absolutely no international law that Russia is abiding by right now. The latest development in this war, as you all know, is the blowing up of the bridge that connects Russia with Crimea. Now, as you know, the history, Crimea was an area of Ukraine that was annexed by Russia in 2014. Since Russia did not have any direct land connection with Crimea, what they had done was they had artificially built a huge bridge in this area called Kerch. That is why it was called the Kerch Bridge. It was over $3.5 billion expensive. This was a direct link of Russia with Crimea. Now, what has happened is that this bridge has been blown up, although no country has officially said that we have blown up the bridge, but Russia says that Ukraine is the only country that could have done this. Because of this, now we see Russia going on another offensive against Ukraine. This is a 19-kilometer long bridge over the Kerch Strait. As I said, it is the only direct transport connection between Russia and the Crimean Peninsula. This costed about $3.6 billion to Russia and was actually regarded as a dream project of Vladimir Putin. That is why this entire bridge, which consists of roadways, railways, etc., this blowing up is seen as a big blow to the Russian ambitions right now. This bridge is also significant because this allowed Russia to ensure supply of fuel, food, and other products to Crimea, where they have the port of Sevastopol. Sevastopol, as you know, is famous for being the base of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Now, Russia's connection with this fleet may be disrupted because of this bridge now. The next article that we have here is about the Government of India's requirement to have a robust supply chain in place for our mineral supply if we have to grow further. As you know, the Government of India has been trying to progress on the aim of Atmanirbharta in energy, that is, self reliance in energy. However, in order to achieve that, India requires a lot of very important minerals, mainly the rare earth metals. Now, before we go deeper into this, just a very quick clarification. There's a lot of doubt that students have. Many people think that rare earth metals are called rare earth because they're very rare, but that is not the case. Please do remember. Rare earth minerals are not rare, they are very commonly found in the earth's crust. They are called rare because it is very difficult to actually extract them from their ore. So the rare earth metals occur very rarely in their pure form. They occur in the form of ore. To convert them and to extract them in their purest form, that is very difficult, and that is why they are called as a rare earth metals. These include a total of 17 metals that we will just discuss in a bit. There are a lot of challenges associated with this. As I said, the first challenge is that they often occur in those areas which are geopolitically very sensitive. As you know, China is by far the largest producer of rare earth metals in the entire world. The second problem is that their manufacturing is controlled by those nations which are not very friendly with India. Be it China, be it Democratic Republic of Congo, be it other nations which have not really been on good terms with India. Thirdly, the problem is that extraction of these minerals is usually tied up in very long term contracts. For example, wherever the minerals would be found, nations such as China, US, etc., would already have made long agreements with them. So, for the Indian government to now go there and extract those minerals is very difficult. What we have done is in 2019, the government of India established something called KABIL, KABIL, that is Khanij Bidesh India Limited, in order to secure mineral supply for the domestic market from outside the country. This article also contains certain suggestions for policymakers on how to ensure robust supply of rare earth metals for the country. For example, the suggestions include that we should make a 5-year roadmap. How many minerals do we need? What is the quantity? And then focus on manufacturing these within the country or outside. Secondly, we should coordinate with the domestic industry as well, along with the government. Private sector should be encouraged to have their own mineral source rather than depending on the government. Thirdly, the government organization set up in 2019 should also help the private sector in forming relationship with other nations across the world. The government should also jointly invest in these projects because these can be very dangerous for investment and private sector might not like to come up. Apart from that, rather than just importing these metals, we should also try and develop our own capabilities to extract these metals in the long run. These rare earth metals, as I said, are extremely useful for a lot of different applications. For example, cerium is used in automobiles to reduce sulfur dioxide emissions. Then we have gadolinium, which is used in making flash drives, that is the pen drives, etc. We also have samarium, which is used in guided missiles in combination with cobalt, magnets, etc. So there are a lot of very important critical applications of the rare earth metals. As I said earlier, the rare earth metals are a group of 17 metallic elements which include erbium, europium, lanthanum, samarium, scandium, etc. They have some unique properties such as magnetism, luminescent and electrochemical properties, and that is why they can be used in a lot of different applications such as consumer electronics, computers, communication, healthcare, etc. As I said earlier as well, they are called rare because it's difficult for them to be extracted from their oxides, not because they are found in very small quantity. Please do remember that part. India also has made a rare earth metal policy so that we can actually ensure its robust supply in the long run. In India, exploration is done by Bureau of Mines and Department of Atomic Energy. They have been trying to ensure that our sources of rare earth metals increase in the long run. We also have something called the IREL, that is the Indian Rare Earth Limited, which is a public sector undertaking under the Department of Atomic Energy, ensuring that we can actually extract as many of these metals as possible. Apart from rare earth metals, we're also focusing on elements such as thorium, which is a very, very important part of India's three-stage nuclear power program. As you can see here on this graph, China is way ahead as compared to other nations when it comes to rare earth metal. Yes, their monopoly has declined in the past few years, but even today, if you see the numbers, that is China's production as compared to other nations, China is way, way, way ahead. The next article that we have here talks about the bad situation in which India's prisons exist right now. Now, the reason why this topic is in the news is recently there was a report published under which the BSF, that is a Border Security Force, if they found any person illegally trying to enter India from Bangladesh, and if the person did not have a criminal record, rather than putting them into the prison, the BSF was actually returning them back to Bangladesh because the West Bengal prisons have almost no place for new people to come in. That is why this topic again has come in the news. And this is the situation which exists across the country right now. In 2021, India had 5.5 lakh people in prisons, while our total capacity of prisons in India was only 4.25 lakh. Thus, it is almost 130% of the total capacity that we had. And the situation has been the same in many, many years. We have almost always had more people in the prison as compared to what the capacity of the prison is. Now, if you're thinking, how is that possible? That is because if a person is supposed to be locked up individually in a cell, the cell then is shared with multiple people. That is how we have over 100% capacity. While all states are performing badly in this aspect, some states which are performing extremely badly are Uttarakhand, UP, and Delhi. In these three regions, the occupancy rate is over 180% as per 2021 numbers. The problem is not just this. At the same time, we have a high number of vacancy amongst the prison officers also in multiple states. So it's not just that we don't have enough people. It's also that we don't have enough people to actually look into and supervise the prison system in the country. In Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, etc., over 60% of prison officer positions are still vacant. If you look at this graph, this gives you state-wise data about the occupancy rate. As you can see, Chhattisgarh in 2011 was extremely bad, 256% being their occupancy rate, which has now come down to 149%. But most of the states that we have today have their occupancy rate of above 100%. The problem is that this is one of those things that we don't really discuss. As a society, we are least bothered and concerned about what is happening in the prison. People would always say government should first focus on people who are outside the prison, right? Why should the government spend any money on people inside the prison? Yes, we do have the National Human Rights Commission that has been given the responsibility of undertaking inspection of the prisons. But in reality, we also know there are hardly any reforms carried out in prisons in India. Let me give you one more example. Now, in US, we have a separate kind of a system. In US, for example, the US government also knows it is not very easy to run prisons, to employ so many people who will look into the prisons. In US, on the other hand, that is why we have a concept of private prisons. Now, what are private prisons? So, companies actually run their own prisons. Once the people are given certain punishment by the court, they will be transferred to private prisons. And these private prisons, depending upon how many people they are actually holding up as per the government law, will be given money from the government. So there are a lot of private prison companies actually that exist in US. That is not really the case in India, but that has also led to a lot of corruption in the US. Because for these companies, they want as many people to be given punishment as possible so that their business can increase. Now in India, not having enough space or not having enough prison officials is not the only problem. The other part of the problem was highlighted recently by Prison Statistics of India 2020 report. This report said that there is hardly any availability of medical staff in the prison. There is a huge shortage of medical staff in most of the prisons across the country. Goa, for example, has a vacancy of 85% of the medical staff. Karnataka 67%, Jharkhand 59%, so on and so forth. Uttarakhand, for example, has only one medical officer for close to 6,000 people in the prison. Just imagine that. And imagine what would be the situation of those prisoners if they start falling ill. The reason why we don't really pay a lot of attention here is that our priorities are not about the people who are in the prison. Our priorities would always be about people who are out, and that is why we don't really talk about it a lot. The only states which have met the benchmark of having the required number of medical staff are Arunachal Pradesh and Meghalaya. They are the only ones who have met the benchmark of having one medical officer for at least 300 prisoners in the state. The next article that we have here is an old article that has been republished. It is about the problems that still exist in the local governance in India. The authors say that although we had the 73rd and the 74th Amendment that gave constitutional status to panchayats and to the municipalities, we all know that even after 3 decades have passed, there has been almost no progress made to empower the panchayats and the municipalities. Yes, we do have lakhs and lakhs of people who are now elected representatives for a 5-year term, but they hardly have any power. The main reason being that these two constitutional amendment acts did not make it mandatory to give financial power to the local governments. As you know, the provision for financial powers or financial devolution was made voluntary, and that is why in most of the cases you will see that enough finances are not given to panchayats or to the municipalities. In fact, research has shown that in most of the states, the responsibility that is given to local governance is about water supply, sanitation, roads and communication, street light and management of community assets of the Gram Panchayat. However, they are just not given enough money to take care of all this infrastructure. Not just this, local governments don't even have their own staff to perform the basic functions. For example, when we had the pandemic, due to which so many people left their jobs in the cities or their jobs were actually over, they had to come back to their villages. Now, in order to build up quarantine facility or to give them enough support, you require finances from the side of the municipality and the panchayat, which was just not the case. They just did not have enough money. Now, the problem is other parts of the law have also been violated. You have read the 73rd Amendment Act, you know that after the 5-year term of the panchayat and the municipality is over, elections have to be held within 6 months, right? However, that has not always been the case. In 2005, for example, Gujarat government postponed the Ahmedabad corporation elections and the Supreme Court got very angry. They said that this should not happen. But even then, look at Tamil Nadu, where panchayat elections have not been held for over 2 years now. Look at Bangalore. Bangalore municipality elections have not been held for multiple years now. So yes, all these are constitutional violations and the Supreme Court must step in, but that has not happened. There are a lot of problems because of this. First, because we have not given enough power to local panchayats, the municipalities, people don't know whose responsibility it is to take care of what infrastructure. For example, if a common man sees that the street lights are not working properly, or the roads are not made properly, or there's a drainage problem, we have urban flood problem. The problem is that the people don't know who to blame. Is it the center government's responsibility? Is it the state government's responsibility? Is it the municipality responsibility? Because proper division of power has not happened. Also, there are many people who think that there's a lot of corruption at the local government level, but that is also not true. Corruption exists in politics at all levels, be it the center government, the state government, or at the local government. So let's not just say that it is the local government that faces a lot of corruption issues. If we have to move forward, we have to take example of states such as Kerala and Tamil Nadu, where the states have given a lot of powers and responsibilities to the Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat, and the results have been very, very positive. We have to make the Gram Panchayats much more accountable. We have to give them the power of taxation as well. In most of the states, they have not been given the power to collect any form of taxes from the local people. That is why they're always dependent on the state and the center governments only. That also has to stop. Because state and center governments don't have enough money to give to the local governments. That is why the local governments should be given the responsibility and the power to collect their own taxes. I'm sure all of you are aware about the structure of how the local governments work. If not, this is how the structure of the local governance is, and usually these are their revenue sources. Mostly they have external revenue sources, including grants and loans from central government, state government, some donor agencies, etc., who want to come in and donate money in the form of CSR, etc. Most local governments in India don't have the option to put taxes. That depend on state to state, as you know, as per 73rd, 74th Amendment. How much financial powers are to be given to panchayats and municipalities. The respective state legislature would decide that, and it was voluntary on them to decide. The next article that we have here is the announcement of the Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences that is shared by three people. That is Ben Bernanke, Douglas W. Diamond, and Phillips H. Dybvig. These are the three people who will be sharing this year's Nobel Prize in Economics. Now, the reason why they have been given this Nobel Prize is because of their research about what happens when the banks start to collapse. One of them, that is Mr. Ben Bernanke, is a former US Federal Reserve chair, means equivalent to the RBI governor in India. He had actually researched the Great Depression of the US and how can we learn lessons to educate the government into avoiding the collapse of the bankings. These people together have come up with this research about the bank failures and why avoiding these bank failures is extremely vital for large economies as well as small. For this, they have been given this Nobel Prize. They also showed that the government guarantee on deposits can prevent the financial crisis. Similarly, as you know, in India also, we do have a deposit guarantee. If the banks fail, up to a certain limit of money, you will be guaranteed in the form of insurance. Now, just an important fact about the Nobel Prize in Economics. Do remember, the Nobel Prize in Economics is different as compared to the other prizes. Why? While the other prizes were started because they were written in the will of Alfred Nobel. When he passed away, he wanted his property, his money to be used to establish the Nobel Prize. But the Nobel Prize for Economics started much later. It was started by the Central Bank of Sweden actually in 1968. That is why it is called the Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in the memory of Alfred Nobel. So many people say this is not the Nobel Prize. This is actually the prize given by the Central Bank of Sweden, but it is considered as a Nobel Prize only. The prize money is about 10 million Swedish kronor, which is equivalent to about 8.33 crore rupees. This is the prize money that will be given to these people. These are the important articles that we had in the Hindu newspaper today. Now a couple of practice questions. Number one. Despite adequate constitutional safeguards, local governments in India continue to face existential threats. Elaborate. Second. What are rare earth metals? How significant are they in India's plans of achieving self-reliance in terms of clean energy? Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a good day ahead.